Hi, I'm Cheryl Hill, the Technical Services Librarian here at SELCO, and I'm here today with the OCLC update for the end of 2013 and the beginning of 2014. The OCLC project is a multi-year project that will synchronize each library's Horizon item holdings with OCLC's WorldCat database. This one-time process begins with each library weeding and inventorying their collections, and then working through a series of cleanup reports. Inventory is not just physically scanning your materials, but these cleanup reports that come along with inventory are essential. SELCO staff do guide you through these inventory reports. When these reports are completed, SELCO staff sends your data to OCLC, and then OCLC runs an automated matching process that returns files of records that were matched automatically with OCLC numbers inserted into our MARC records, which SELCO staff then load into the database. They also return a file of unmatched or unresolved records that didn't match during the automatic processing. SELCO staff will then begin working through that unresolved file by recataloging the records or by requesting material for full recataloging. On occasion, when dealing with the unresolved reports, we will require the help from the library, including not just sending materials, but we may have questions or we may need to do site visits to clean up some of the more original or local material before loading it into OCLC. Because we have 89 libraries in the SELCO system, we have broken down the libraries into several groups to allow the staff here to better manage our resources and the time constraints on the libraries. For more information on the OCLC project, you can go to the SELCO website here at www.selco.info. If you go down to Services, Integrated Library System, and most of the OCLC stuff falls under Cataloging, and you'll see various information on the Cataloging department, including information about inventory and information about weeding. This project began in full force in December of 2011 by aligning people with groups that they selected for themselves. General timelines were assigned, and you can see those timelines by going into the reclamation process and selecting the group selection and the group letter. You can see who's in which group and what the timelines are. So libraries selected their own groups, and there has been lots of adjusting to both who's in what groups and the schedule of those groups depending upon local needs and different obligations the libraries had. So in general, we have been trying to keep to a pretty rigorous schedule because of the number of libraries, and we anticipated that as we moved along the project, the final steps would become simpler as we have a shared database of records. In other words, dealing with some of the more difficult records at the beginning that one larger library might have, we were hoping we would not see that record again as we move on. So the time frame was set to be pretty rigorous so that we could just keep a pretty good pace and get through all the records. So currently, the status of the project is as follows. Pilot libraries in Group 1. And we'll pull some of these up here for you to see. So Group 1 libraries, and then there's some pilot libraries here. These libraries are all through the steps that I showed you previously here. They are all finished through step 5 here, the automated matching process. So they've done their weeding, they've done their inventory, they've done their cleanup. We've sent their data to OCLC, and the automated matching process has completed. And most of these libraries have also completed step 6, but some of the larger libraries in this group have some material that still need to be manually matched, primarily local and original material that we are tracking on spreadsheets to address as the process moves forward and as time allows. The Group 2 libraries are all completed with through step 2. So all the group 2 libraries have done their weeding and have had their inventories done. Most of them have also completed step 3, but there is a handful of libraries that are still working on their cleanup reports. I do hope to have those few libraries done by the end of this month, February 2014. A good majority of these group 2 libraries are past the step 4 and step 5 and are already on to the step 6. So they have had their data matched, and we are now working through their unresolved. And their reports, their unresolved or non-matching files, are much smaller than some of these original pilot libraries and group 1 libraries because, as we said earlier, we share MARC records, so we've already seen a lot of these MARC records that aren't matching with previous libraries, and we've adjusted them so that they will match with some of the later libraries. So currently, right now, most of our focus is actually on these Group 3 and Group 4 libraries. There were some schedule difficulties with Group 3, and the holidays and some other issues on the end of the libraries ended up making scheduling inventories and cleanup with Group 3 a little more difficult. So in the end, we decided we were just going to combine Group 3 and Group 4 into one large group and take those libraries and those 2 groups that were having scheduling issues and move them into a sort of Group 5 that we would address later. We didn't want to hold up the libraries in Group 3 and Group 4 who were ready to move forward. So instead, we moved some of them who weren't ready into a 5th group, and we are now working with Group 3 and 4 together. There are a lot of school libraries in Group 3 and 4, including, you can see here, the Rochester schools. And this presents a unique problem as OCLC looks at school districts as one entity instead of individual buildings. So we have to take that into consideration as we schedule cleanup and inventories and weeding. So right now with these Group 3 and 4 libraries, a handful of them have gone through the 2nd step here of inventory and are working on cleanup reports. There are a few that are working on the step 1 here, their weeding, and many have their inventory scheduled or have just recently finished it. So Group 3 and 4 are generally in this 1, 2, and 3 step, where Group 2 is somewhere in this 5, 6 step generally, and pilot groups in Group 1 are pretty much all into Group 6 here, or step 6, working on the last and final processes of this. So some of you may ask why we are doing this project. I've gotten that question a few times, and my answer would be we're doing this for a lot of reasons, but the main reason is that there's a lot of benefits to undertaking a project like this. The main one would be to you, the individual libraries, who find themselves wearing so many different hats in one day that some of these less glamorous areas of librarianship, like weeding and inventory and cleaning up your data, get pushed aside for one day when you actually have time to do them. Well, we're trying to make this the day when you actually do them, and this project puts a spotlight on those activities and gives the libraries a starting point to sort of perform a good base to sort of perform continued maintenance. So a good starting, a clean slate, so to speak. There are many other benefits too. First of all, we now have full and complete access to the WorldCat database of MARC records, which is the largest single repository of MARC records, and this means faster cataloging and backroom processes for our libraries. With your library holdings being seen in WorldCat, an international database, your libraries are more visible and can take advantages of services that such a large organization like OCLC can offer, such as the connections to Goodreads, the progressive movement in library data management, such as linked data and records, and keeping up with FRBR and RDA. And, of course, possibly one day we are investigating the options of contributing to the WorldCat Interlibrary Loan Service, but that is still some time away. So the last and final thing I want to say before we wrap up this update for the end of 2013 and the beginning of 2014 is that you libraries out there, here's the website you can go to. But one thing to keep in mind as you go through your reclamation process is you have a few responsibilities. This process is a one-time process that OCLC allows each library to undergo for free. If you want to do an additional reclamation process, you end up having to pay for it. So the goal here is to maintain your holdings into the future so we don't have to do this again. So SELCO has a few requirements here as you've been reclaimed. The biggest two I've put on here, and that is do not delete your items. I know some of you are used to deleting your items, but instead we want you to mark them withdrawn. And that allows us to remove your holdings as you remove items from your collection. That's your signal to the librarians and the catalogers here at SELCO that you also need your items removed from OCLC. On the flip side of that is that in order to attach your new items, we need you to pull your records from OCLC whenever possible. So whenever possible, go to OCLC, pull mark records, get that OCLC number, which is much like a bib number in Horizon, so it is unique to the OCLC database, and that allows us to tell OCLC what you have added to your collection since we did your reclamation process. So the goal here is to get you to a good point with your collection so that you can do maybe a third of your collection. You can weed it and inventory it maybe every third year so that every third or maybe every fourth or fifth year you have completely taken fresh eyes at your different collection codes and weeded them and inventoried them, and this keeps you sort of moving forward and having a really deep understanding of what you have in your collection so that you can better serve your communities. So that's it for the OCLC update for the end of 2013 and the end of 2014. Thanks a lot.